Robot mutant!
Robot mutant! Robot mutant!
You know, one of my favorite showbiz things to have ever happened, granted, this was the end of this guy's career, and so it almost doesn't count anymore as a showbiz thing, but do you remember Nick Nolte?
Sure.
You know, before he sort of vanished. Is he alive, do you know?
Nick Nolte? I think he is, yeah.
Before he vanished culturally, he had a real drug problem, and I know that's not funny. He self-dosed with GHB, the date rape drug.
Ugh. Oh, my God. You're kidding.
Yeah. No, when...
Rohypnol?
Yeah, when he would get pulled over, they would be like, suspect is drunk and has taken many doses of Rohypnol. And I'm sure this is on YouTube someplace, where this is, again, right before he just vanished. But, you know, various news agencies and talk show hosts were like, Nick, when they arrested you, they said you had taken a lot of the date rape drug. And he said, that's a misnomer. So he was taking it, but he wasn't then molesting himself.
Oh, well then, that shouldn't be a problem then.
Yeah, so it's
not at all.
The negative connotation that he was offering himself up to a stranger. All he was trying to do was just forget the night.
Good Lord.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, you know, there's no explaining those Hollywood types. Believe me, I'm surrounded by them constantly. You know?
But they're a charming bunch, generally speaking.
Yep. Boy, I haven't seen William H. Macy much lately, though.
I wouldn't think. Is he a neighbor of yours?
Well, he's not a neighbor, but I see him fairly now and again at this one coffee place in Studio City. So I think he lives nearish there-esque. Because I've seen him there like 3 or 4 times. But, yeah, wow.
Do you remember there was a thing on Shameless? I think it was like season 7, might have been 5 or 6. But Lip got a job. Well, not a job, but Lip started paying people to take their SATs for them. Or getting paid.
Oh, yeah. That's right. That's right. Lip was taking people's SATs. And there was another thing with William H. Macy's character trying to get the little kid, Liam, into a private school.
That's right.
And he was, currying favor.
Boy.
Unfairly.
I'm really broken up about it.
Oh, I think that's right. He was having sex with the headmaster or whatever.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Boy,
Which always works for me. I mean, that's how I got through school, is just, sleeping with all the administrators.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that way I didn't have to do any studying.
The way I got through school was largely through faking injuries.
And the other way I got through school is pretending to be in school and having not a degree. See, that's another trick.
Wait, what?
Well, actually, I dropped out in my junior year, that's all.
Oh, well, I dropped out of school, too, while interning for you.
Oh, really? See, yeah. We were both like working full time in radio, and that's when we dropped out.
Yeah,
Although
it was like
a few years before you. That's right.
It was like, and part of me regrets it, but putting people through high school right before college is such a mistake, because school is just this lifelong trauma of existence that you can't wait to get away from. And then college promises you so much, but you're so fucking damaged from the last 17 years that, like, you can't hack the environment. You need to, purge the smell of tweed.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah. I experienced a little bit of that. Luckily, I got away from my hometown, where I hated my school, and was living in Boston for a year before I started school. I dropped out of high school in around April, 2 months before I was supposed to graduate. And I took the equivalency, and then I got into Emerson College because I had good English grades.
But then
I dropped out of Emerson College in my junior year. See, I was never much for sitting there in a classroom with somebody telling me what I was supposed to learn.
Yeah.
I've never been very good at that. I just like to create stuff, and so that's why I always excelled with, creative writing.
And they hate that shit in so much of school. To to actually be creative is really frowned upon or punished. I, too, dropped out of high school, then took the, what do you call it, the GED.
Right, that's what I did
And
in New York, yeah.
I wrote my essay on Fishbone.
Oh, that's classic.
Yeah,
that's great.
they loved it.
Yep. Right.
They were like, wow.
Fishbone loved it or the school loved it?
The school loved it. I'm trying to remember whether I ever discussed it with anyone in Fishbone. During those K-Rock years, in my early years as an on-air guy, when I was matched, I should say, with Matt Pinfield on that late-night weird specialty show. And Matt, who is a great guy and really knowledgeable and just really, in general, just a wonderful human being, was not at his peak in many ways at that time.
Right.
In particular, he would often show up fresh from a dinner or a party with record label people and be like, oh, yeah, I haven't even heard it yet, but it's track number 9. Let's put it on. He spoke exactly like Alex Jones, apparently. That or my impressions have become very limited. But he did that once coming from a Soundgarden party, and he was like, oh, yeah, it's this one song, Ty Cobb, we got to play it live right now. And the chorus, this was the olden days when we were on FCC-regulated FM radio. And the chorus, which was like 3/4 of the song, was just the chorus repeating. And it was, fuck you all, fuck you all, fuck you all. And, I felt as though my grip on that job, it was so miraculous to me that anyone would hire me for anything, let alone to do what I actually wanted to do, that this survival instinct kicked in, and I was able to, figure out the rhythm, how often and when he was going to say it. And we didn't have we couldn't dump, because that would be a 70-second whole thing. But I would just disengage program, re-engage it, disengage, re-engage, disengage, re-engage. It's a whole thing.
I remember starting out, too. I had similar things happen to me.
Yeah?
Sure. Radio is, I'm not going to name names, but, it was an interesting time. They tested your, they like to test you a lot back in the day.
Yeah, they did. It was all this great big mind fuck. I told you about my first one-on-one meeting with Sam Milkman.
I remember the character. I don't remember the meeting per se. What was that?
First off, I maintain that is a radio name. It's just got to be. But the conversation was genuinely traumatic in that it's years later, and I'm traumatized even recalling it. So he calls me and he goes, so, doing good. Steve likes you. Kevin Weatherly likes you. I like you. You're doing good. You're not crazy, are you? You're not going down a crazy road? I said, I don't think so. He said, good. I don't want to see you go down a crazy road. Let me tell you a story. When I was a kid, maybe 6, 7, 9 years old, my mom got shingles and died. And they would ask me to go and visit her, and I kept saying no. And then when it finally was over, I laughed. I was so relieved. And I just sort of hovered there waiting for some closure to this horrible story. He goes, that's it. Have a good night.
Yes, it takes all kinds.
Yeah, apparently.
Yeah. The thing that I've still to understand is how some of the people that get to be in charge of places like radio stations actually, why is it that guy?
Yeah.
And very often it's because of good sales record, blah, 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 blah. But it almost never had anything to do with actually being a creative force in any way.
No.
It almost always had to do with numbers. Those guys are there because of the numbers. And that's how it works. It's a business. You got to go by the numbers.
I also think there's a piece of that formula that goes sort of like this, where if a guy carries himself with that much self-possessiveness and is that assertive and off-putting and mean and just walks with such a swagger, looks at the world as being beneath him, then a certain type of lizard brain looks at that guy and goes, oh, he must be really good because he's a giant asshole and no untalented person could get away with that. So let's make him president of our radio station. I mean.
Yeah. I think that's part of it, I guess. And since I was never one of those guys, I could never pull that shit off. So I was always on the creative side Creative.
Well, that plus, I don't know that either of us, I don't mean to speak for you, but speaking for myself, I never wanted to not be, like, it was all about being creative. That was the only attraction. Just being in business and being an asshole. It's like, you can do that anywhere in any field.
Well, yeah, exactly. So, yeah, it's like, yeah, and you have no choice but to pursue the things. Now that I'm the tender age that I am, it's been a minute or two that I've been doing this sort of stuff. It's like my only really realistic money-making job prospects have to involve creativity because I don't have training or experience in things that don't. I've only been doing creative stuff basically all of my life for like over 40 years. So, it's like I could maybe make money as a barista for a month or two, but it wouldn't be very good money. And I had to keep pursuing the creative work, which sometimes people don't understand. It's like, well, why don't you just get a job as a barista? It's like, well, then I don't want to miss the opportunity to do something else that'll make me 50 times that, because that's what you can do in this wacky biz of show.
It is maddening, though. It is forever chasing the dream and like being really happy because, I mean, speaking for myself, I am very happy when great things happen to my friends. But like late at night when I'm counting lists of like reasons I'm a failure, I go, oh, and this guy got to do the Dell commercials. But then like I'll know that it really mattered to me because something will happen, like they'll lose the gig and I'll be really broken up about it. And I'll know like, all right, I was not being jealous. I was finding a way to negatively compare myself to something because we don't shit on ourselves enough.
It's the old sour grapes thing. You couldn't get the choice grapes, so it's like, those grapes are probably sour anyway.
Exactly.
Let that other fox have it. But, the trick is, this will happen to you sort of no matter where you are if you want to pursue a life in show business. But my own experience is I'd rather be in Southern California and have a lousy day in Southern California with the showbiz than be in New York and have a lousy day with the showbiz. It's much more happy making to walk outside here on the average day, just to take a walk and take a break. It's like, and you can go and you can be I can be in the mountains and with a 5-minute drive, I'm like, I can't see a trace of the city.
That's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah. This, you don't quite have that in New York. So not that I'm like, advertising California, but there it is. So how about this Aaron Paul, this Breaking Bad movie? What the heck's going on? What are they filming out there? What is that?
Well, there's been a script in production at the Albuquerque Film Office for, I guess it's like 4 or 5 months now. And it's a movie called Greenbrier, although we all know that these movies, the higher profile they get, the more they use the fake, clearly bogus names. And what tipped off the geniuses at either Deadline or The Hollywood Reporter or Variety to the idea that, I wonder if this is related to Breaking Bad, is that the director is Vince Gilligan. And I guess cast members were there as well, like I think Anna Gunn and I believe Aaron Paul. I couldn't swear to it. All I know is that Cranston was asked about it, Bryan Cranston, on something called The Dan Patrick Show. And he confirmed that there is a movie, it's in production, it is what Greenbrier is. And he hinted that he hadn't gotten a script and no one had called him about a script or called him at all about it. So while he knew it was happening and would participate if asked, he was under the impression that it probably didn't involve Walter White. And yet would be the continuing story of Breaking Bad. So one question, I suppose, is what, if any, role does Saul / what's his new name now? Gene Hackman? It's not Gene Hackman.
No.
Gene Takovic.
Yes, that's his undercover witness protection name, right?
Yeah, at the Cinnabon in Omaha, I think that he works at. I really think that's what it is. You know, one of the last scenes in Breaking Bad, he goes, listen, I'm lucky I end up running a Cinnabon in Omaha. And then the opening scene of Better Call Saul, he is at a Cinnabon.
Yep, yeah. So, yeah, and what does he say about it? Has anybody asked him about it?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Huh. Well, it'll be, whatever it'll be, I bet it'll be good because he has this weird tendency, this Gilligan guy, to do, like, great stuff.
He really does.
Yeah. The other thing I'm super excited about is the Saints of Newark.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. The David R. Chase, the David Chase, whatever his middle initial is. Yeah. I know a casting director there who casted the original Sopranos, and I met her through various workshops and stuff. And she was one of the casting directors for the Sopranos. And she went on to do lots of other things. She casts like Ballers and all these other HBO shows. But I wrote her a note and I said, hey, you know, I see they're doing this show. I'm of a certain age now where I could play, I don't know, I could be the storekeeper or I could be somebody in one of these movies because I look like one of these older sort of normal guys. And she said she's not casting it. So, oh well, but that's okay. Somebody in New York is casting, I guess, mostly because it's probably, you know, they're shooting out that away anyway. So, but it's still exciting. So yeah, you're going to hear things from a perspective. My perspective is I worked in radio, just for people listening to us doing this for the first time, because we are in fact doing this for the first time.
Yes.
As a podcast. I worked in radio for like most of my life, and then the radio stations all got bought up by single companies. And there are fewer and fewer jobs for people that did what I did, which is production and, you know, occasional part-time DJ. And I decided to get back to my roots and try to do acting because my dream was always to be an actor and to work my way into it through radio, like my heroes, Jack Benny and Orson Welles. And so, you know, that's, I think I just go into movies and TV from radio. It's easy.
Yeah.
They're all shows. And of course, arriving here in California about 6 years ago, I've realized, hey, no. I have the union card and I have, because SAG merged with AFTRA and I was an AFTRA member. Mm-hmm. So it's like, yeah, I could just get right into acting. It's like, no, you can't just jump in immediately. You got to know some people. You got to do some work. You got to get some stuff on your resume. And anyway, it's an exciting thing. And that's I'm a semi-working actor, and I do sound design for my friends' films and other people's films and TV projects. So that's fun. And I more or less make a living doing that. And it's fun and exciting, but often challenging. Let me tell you.
Getting the work or doing the work, or would you describe it as basically equal?
I'd say the most challenging thing is getting the work right now, only because I'm like a 25-year-old now out here, in that I'm just starting to get like a reputation doing stuff, and I had none whatsoever when I got here. So I'm just starting to get traction in things other than radio, and it's very interesting at the age of my age.
Yes.
So that's my story.
Well, my story is that I spent not much of, but I mean a decent amount of my younger years, certainly in radio. And I finally just flamed out and lost all enthusiasm and hope that it was going to take me where I wanted to go. Shortly after working at what was then just Sirius Radio before it became Sirius XM. Because, you know, all that shit they were saying about, you know, don't worry, the stock options are going to come through. And like the stock was tanking. The engineers they had back then, I know that all these people got replaced, but the people they had then, I'd worked with them, and I knew that they couldn't get FM transmitters to work. And we had like an actual NASA, I think you had this in your building too, like an actual like space station where you could watch.
Because I was at XM.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, ththese guys literally don't know how to work an FM receiver. They're not going to connect you to outer space. And it was interesting. My bosses, I mean, it was only one of the more traumatic things that happened to me there, that my direct superior threatened me with rape and murder every day. that was only one of the concurrent things that was upsetting to me. And it's the one thing they acted on because they couldn't wait to get rid of him. But I'd been doing his job from the moment I arrived because he never learned how to do it. And I continued to do his job after he left. And the deal was that by a certain date, they would then promote me. But in the meantime, just, for appearances, just do the work and trust us. And then toward the end of my tether, as I was like, you know what, this trust stuff is for the birds. They said, listen, we need you to show this guy who I'm banging how you do your day every day, like walk him through your job. And instead of doing his job, he's going to watch you do yours.
And don't worry, we're not going to replace you or anything.
Yeah, I said, what they said was, again, it's just for appearances, but it's very important for appearances that Rolling Stone's going to do a walkthrough tomorrow, and we need them to see how the sausage gets made. And I said, all right, well, then they can come and talk to me and watch me do my shit. They said, no. Again, for appearances, has to look like it's this guy.
Oh, Jesus.
I am still...
I didn't know this part of the story.
I am still startled that it was that bad, that venal and fucking corrupt and awful. And honestly, I mean, the least upsetting thing to me was hearing that Mel came in and fired everybody because it was a wretched hive of scum and villainy. They used to brag that they didn't let independent record promoters through the door. Now, they worded that...
corruption. Yeah.
Right, because that's how, whiter than white they are, beyond reproach. Meanwhile, what they were doing is taking up all these newly unemployed independent record promoters because Elliot Spitzer had outlawed the profession because it was that corrupt and hired them as program directors.
Oh, yes.
So technically, no independent record promoter could come through the door.
Right, that's right.
Because how could they be? They're program directors who just...
But there's no payola. Payola's dead.
Oh, no, yeah.
We've gotten rid of payola at last.
Yeah.
And now the system is completely clean. Yeah.
Isn't it amazing
the other thing we should explain, just to fill people in, Matt and I worked, just to do the little timeline thing here, because I don't know if people know this, but Matt and I worked together at K-Rock in New York, where Howard Stern all morning, classic rock all day. That was the format. So I was hired by K-Rock to be the production director, and Matt ended up doing you were my intern for a while, and then you became a disc jockey when they changed the format and fired everybody, including me, except they didn't fire you because you were young and they liked your style, and you were a great, K-Rock new music DJ. So you did that for a while. Then we did various things on our own, and then I got the job as XM Satellite Radio's production director for their New York studios. And I ended up basically helping to originate the comedy channels, the Sinatra channel, and a bunch of other channels out of the New York offices, even though XM was based in D.C. And then you started working for our competition, Sirius Satellite Radio, which, of course, would never, ever merge with XM Radio because that would be unheard of.
Yeah.
It'd be like GM merging with Ford. It just wouldn't happen.
Or like Disney acquiring Fox. It's unheard of.
Yeah, how could that? No, that will never, ever happen.
Don't be crazy, stupid.
Yeah. And then, of course, they did merge. And then all of my bosses lost their jobs because of, what did they call it? Redundant personnel or whatever. And then, of course, that's when I lost my job with XM. But hey, it gave me the opportunity to come out here to California and be a Californian and do the California thing, and I love it.
Yeah, so I do think
I'm actually glad that it did end. I truly am.
Yeah,
because I would never have experienced all these wonderful things that I'm experiencing out here.
Well,
including working with Bryan Cranston as LBJ, and I was a senator in that movie. That was fun.
There you go.
See, so I think of Cranston as Mr. President.
Right.
Or, LBJ.
Right.
Yeah. That's why I love show business. Well, it would be, that's the sort of show I dream about getting into, of course, is Breaking Bad or the Saints of Newark movie or something like that, because I want to do stuff like that. I love all that stuff. I love the Coen brothers. Oh, my God.
I thought I was going to be in the Scorsese movie, and it's conceivable that, like, the tiny little bit we shot is going to happen, but it's probably not going to. Something happened where, first of all, I got cast in a very strange way. I got cast using a headshot that was like 30 years old. And so I was like, all right, just so you know, I don't know how you found that, but this is what I look like right now. And they're like, that's fine. That's great. Just keep the sideburns. We just need these 70s sideburns. So, it's interesting how the sausage gets made, what they do and don't care about. And for them, it was all about the mutton chop sideburns. But then first I went out there there was this thing that is actually, there's a version of this going through the Midwest of the United States now. They call it a bomb cyclone or a cyclone bomb.
Oh, yeah.
Where it goes from being basically normal weather and like pressure to like an onslaught of like it's subarctic and the winds are so heavy that being outdoors for even a couple of seconds is dangerous. And in my case, I remember my hands did freeze just walking the 2 blocks from the subway station into the fitting place out in Queens. But so I went and spent one day waiting to be filmed. And then SAG-AFTRA called and said, you've got to shut down. The weather says that you can't shoot. So we rescheduled for 2 weeks out. And there had been 2 weeks of just totally normal weather. And then the fucking bomb cyclone came back. But it was like, whatever. This is such a great opportunity. Scorsese, De Niro, Pacino,
Ray Romano.
Joe Pesci.
I love Ray Romano.
Oh, yeah. He's a great guy.
He's great. Yeah.
But go on, yes.
But yeah, I mean, it was like, oh my God. Like, I don't care what the role is. I don't care how long I'm in it. I know for a fact I'm going to be bragging about this the rest of my life, just pointing at people. That's me. That's me. You see, there's De Niro and there's Pacino and there's Pesci and there's me over there. I'm me with the sideburns. So I guess late in the day, they said, it turns out, and it was confusing because my role was court martial, but not someone who was being court-martialed, like a U.S. Marshal who works in the court. And they finally did some research at like the last minute, and it was determined that at that time in that vicinity, there weren't court martials. And so my fate became uncertain. I made the same $9 I would have made regardless. But
right.
I'd really like to see myself up there or be able to, claim that credit. But I won't know until I see it. They're not very communicative. And even then...
Well, folks, stay tuned because, you're going to hear the journey of two people navigating this world. And not just the kid. We're not the kids. We're the older people.
Yeah.
In this world.
Although we're still pretty kid-like.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Man, I remember in the same thing that got me hired for a while became an albatross. Right now it's advantageous again. It keeps coming and going, but there was this period at Buchwald where I was not getting sent out a lot. And again, we're talking about like 2000, early 2001. And this was my agent, Don Buchwald and Associates. And I went to the commercial person there because when they sent me out in those years, I booked with more regularity than I expected, put it that way. And then I stopped getting sent. And she said, that whole like regular guy thing with the dry humor, but professional enough to walk into the door, no one wants that anymore. They're looking for old school 1930s, studs, like very generic, like think 1980s, not 1990s. It's a brave old era of everyone being just totally like typecast again. And I took that to heart and for a while just said, fuck this business. And then started to see people popping up all over the place doing the dry humor regular guy thing. And
oh yeah,
now
I think it's more popular than ever now.
And most of my income
that's
now,
most of the VO instructions I get are don't sound like an announcer, be a regular guy like a neighbor.
I got scolded last week for actually saying pickup. They were like, no. You're not here to be a voiceover guy. You're here because you love cheese. Just talk about the cheese. If you screw up a line, just keep going. But don't remind us that you are a professional announcer, to which I said, fine. I mean, that's easy. It is a weird kind of mixed compliment to get, to be sort of an autodidact.
Yeah. That's my curse, see. Whenever I just open up my mouth, people are like, hey, you sound like an announcer. And like, if I try to sound natural, I still sound like an announcer just because I think I just did that stuff for so long.
Yeah.
So I just, I'm just talking and people are like, why are you talking like a DJ? It's like, I'm just talking.
I think
I'm trying to just talk. Can't I just open my mouth and not have it be an issue?
For some reason, that never really kicked in with me. Like, I never really got the radio thing thing. And I guess there's a few reasons for that. Part of it is, and I guess this is something, you know how sometimes something awful happens, but then you look back and go, you know, maybe that was for the best. I worked so hard to get onto radio and specifically wanted to work at K-Rock and be on the air there so badly. And yet, as I got to be a part of that, I mean, for one thing, my friends, as you mentioned, all got fired. And then I met these various programming people and saw the logs and began doing the same show day after day after day with the same frickin' songs and the 9 seconds to do a liner in between them. And so as I was attaining my dream, I was also being disillusioned at an equal, if not faster pace. And so I never got beyond that. Yeah, I'm here. I'm professional enough to be here, but smarmy enough that you think I'm cool. And I'm not here to be your dancing monkey. I'm not here to impress you. I remember they put out 2 memos when they hired me full time. There was one that was circulated in the office, and then there was one that they sent out to like the papers. And the one that was inter-office was like, Matt is a paragon of virtue and represents everything that K-Rock should strive to be. He is the best of the best, the brightest of the brightest. He is a king among men. And then to the press, it was like, so there's this goddamn intern who we couldn't get him to leave. So we just gave him a show. Just seemed like the easiest way to deal with him.
Right.
And
That's
I
right.
never knew which one was true.
That's like the attitude. Dude, K-Rock. Yeah.
Like, we'll just hire.
Yeah,
like
we
an
don't
intern.
care.
Yeah.
Here's Green Day. What? Yeah, that's my imitation of the K-Rock.
God,
sound.
did I hate that manufactured hipness? I'm going to be very careful to not name names, but I did not love my peers. I loved the people I came up with who taught me how it was done. And I was fortunate enough that I got to work with you guys first off as a young intern. And then later, you know, before Sirius and everything sort of breaking down, I spent some time here in New York at Q104, where the program director who hired me really liked me. I mean, very early on, there was an incident where I was playing one of those like 14-minute ELP songs, and a couple of young ladies were in the station, and I don't know how this all got recorded, but we went into the bathroom, certain substances were used, certain acts were committed, and I was back to do the segue when the time came.
Oh, dear.
But I was, though. I mean, it went fine, but somehow every detail was made known to this PD, and he liked me so much that he said, you know, listen, you can't be doing that because you're the future of this radio station. I was like, oh, my God, this is the real deal. And then 2 days later, he was fired.
He was fired.
Yeah.
Yes, that's always the way it went.
Yeah.
The really
like,
cool guy who really gets you.
He would
Gets
like call
canned,
me out
and then
meetings.
some other doofus with a suit comes in and is like, yeah, can you make sure that you have my favorite instruction ever in radio was I was at one radio station for a very brief amount of time, and because they were run by a very straight organization, and they wanted to seem edgy, so they hired little punk rock me, and they wanted me to make edgy promos for them, and the instruction that he told me that I will never forget as long as I live is, yeah, make sure that these things I want you to give me promos, Bill, that have attitude but no swagger. Okay, can you do that? Can you give us attitude without swagger? And he would throw around these terms, and like, I didn't know what the fuck he was talking about. And that to me was just like, you know, people like that telling you things like that, they have no idea what they're actually saying. That's why I didn't understand it, because
It made
the
no
guy
sense.
actually had no idea what he was saying.
I still find that, and I want to make this very clear, I love every casting director and producer I work with a lot, but someone somewhere will occasionally write copy that makes it into their hands that they then hand off to you or to me to audition for. This is I'm talking about voiceover work, which is how I
Right.
make what what I was going to say earlier is that much of my income is basically, I hate that it's this elevator pitch, but if I'm being honest, it's that people go, all right, well, this commercial ought to star Dennis Leary, but we've only got $800 for a total budget. So why don't we call Matt? And
Right.
and that's fine as niches go. And it's not really 800. It's union scale or something on par with that. But
Right.
what I was going to say before
Right.
about
Dennis is scale plus, believe me.
yeah. But don't you ever do you get copy that's like a young white Morgan Freeman or Peter Griffin, a Family Guy, if he was crossed with Neil deGrasse Tyson, but with less gravitas, but more intellectual. It's like, what the fuck?
A little bit more Burgess Meredith than that.
Yeah. Late stage Orson
incongruous, incongruous combinations. Yes. Yeah, but sometimes it's fun. I like those challenges too.
I like
really
them
do.
sometimes, but then when they go, oh, come on, didn't you read the instructions?
Well,
you don't sound like Peter Griffin as a black man. And it's like, yeah,
Right.
I wasn't sure where you were going with that.
Yeah, and if I ever do I don't think I ever got asked to sound like a black man or to sound like Morgan Freeman per se, but they try to keep those sorts of instructions sort of neutral.
Yeah.
But sometimes you'll combine a couple of different voices in your own way and think, well, I'm going to take a little bit of. You can get interesting combinations if you play with them, and they aren't always what you think they'll be. God, of course, now I can't think of a single example, but Porky, Elmer Fudd meets Nixon, so it's like, so you have hello, Elmer Fudd is like that, and then you have hello, yes. So maybe, well, then you have somebody who talks like this, and that's a little weird. That's a weird, fucked up character.
Yes.
And that's fun. I like, so yeah.
And I would often
synthesizing things.
take like a version of a friend or a coworker, someone who I liked and, who got the joke, and just take it to a cartoonish extreme that was, it was no longer an impression. It was a whole new character where like I just drilled through them down to like their soul and come out the other side as like a cartoon cat.
Right. Yeah. And that's how you come up with something like you wouldn't even realize that I was combining Elmer Fudd with, you wouldn't recognize that from the final result, Elmer Fudd and Nixon. And yet, that's a funny character all by itself. And only you might know the backstory. I've also come to understand the importance of backstory to anything, even just a voiceover, because like the camera picks up what you're thinking, because it really does. The film or television camera will pick up what the actor is thinking. So it's important to keep your mind in your character. The microphone is the same thing. And that's why they want people who believe that they love cheese. They don't want to hear anything that sounds like you don't believe it 100%, because that actually does come across.
Yeah. No, I know.
So the backstory can be so important, even if you have no idea, even if the listener or the viewer has no idea what the backstory is. It really helps to make the character in a way that you can never imagine would happen otherwise. It's fun. I like it.
You've got to imbue everything with the backstory, because otherwise it's just you reading lines, hitting marks.
Yep. Yeah.
And aside from the artlessness of it as a performer, you're just not going to put in that kind of a show. I mean, I do know some actors who are very, very successful, and that just is how they work. I would call them the exceptions and not the rules, and that they've got some kind of like otherworldly talent that is beyond our comprehension. For me,
exactly.
Everything's got to involve a backstory, and the flimsier it is, the less the more difficult it is for me to inhabit that. I know we both sound like such tremendous inside the actor studio a-holes right now for like semi-working adults, but I do concur.
Yeah, and I just there's so many things that I never understood about this stuff before I moved here, and it's fun. Because all the acting I did was always on stage. I never acted in front of a camera before, so learning about that stuff at the tender age of my age is very interesting. And I'm not going back. I'm sticking with this for a while.
Yeah.
Yes, sirree. And say, the clock on the wall there, Timmy, it seems to be indicating that we've been at this for a few minutes, so we may want to wrap this up kind of soon. But quickly, what exactly, I love this name, Robot Mutant, that you came up with.
Thank you.
How do you envision Robot Mutant?
Well, when I got the domain name, it was nearly a decade ago now, and I've yet to, up to literally tonight, figure out something to do with it. For a while, I ran it as like this general interest catch-all blog for like, I wanted to write and be creative and talk about stuff that interested me, but in a way that was quite the opposite of radio or even voiceover, something that was just super anonymous, where it's like people don't come to read what Matt Sager's got to say. They come to read what is the news on Robot Mutant. But I could never stay that committed, in part because, like you, I do have this bug, this creativity bug. And it always felt kind of, I know this was my mission statement, but it felt kind of vaguely artless. But I did love the name, so I held on to it. And
Sure.
Like it's my...
I'd rather be a creative than a fan anytime, but yet I'm also, of course, a fan of so many things.
And, I was actually given a very stern talking to, not to go off on yet another tangent anecdote, but, one thing that informed me then, and I think informs me to this day, and it's a bit hazy because it happened in a hypnotic state. But on one of my birthdays, do you remember my little buddy Jake?
Sure, the video guy, yeah.
Yeah, from MTV. He brought me to a concert it was either upstate or like Connecticut or Philly. It was my birthday, New Year's Eve, and Chibo Motto was playing, and he's good friends with Sean Lennon, and the Beastie Boys were hanging out. And
Cool.
I don't remember who else played, but I know that the MC was Jim Rose, who was the freaky circus guy throughout the 90s.
The Jim Rose Circus!
Yeah.
Yeah, that was fun.
And
whatever happened to that guy? Jeez, I haven't heard about Jim Rose Circus since like the U2 Zoo TV tour.
Yeah, I wonder all the time, because I remember that, and he did Lollapalooza, and then this was like 99, and then I never saw him in the news again, and I always thought, geez, he was really hot there for a minute. But he came to me and said, listen, this is great. It's your birthday. So here's your present. We're going to bring you up on stage, put an apple in your mouth, and I'm going to carve your name into it with a chainsaw. And I said, yeah, that's not going to happen. See, because I've got this thing called panic disorder. And when chainsaws get close to my face, being wielded by people I've never met, I kind of start to piss myself. And that's just not how the night's going to go. And he just put his hand on my shoulder and met my gaze and said, no, Pat, listen. This is going to be so much. And the next thing I knew, I was on stage having this done to me. And in fact, the next day, I had to go back on K-Rock. And you know how I was complaining a minute ago that most 4-hour shifts, you maybe spoke 40 seconds the entire time. This happened to be because it was New Year's Day, and this was 92.3 radio. It was the top 92.3 songs of 98 or 99 or whatever year it was. So I had to do a break out of every song. And I'd swallowed a chainsaw's worth of chainsaw grease the night before, and it was not a good. I mean, it was really a funny air check if you wanted to like hear somebody so miserable and you can't believe they're at work. And I even called Kingston at home.
Chainsaw oil throat.
I called Kingston. I said, "You really want me in the air like this?" And he was like, "Oh, I want you in there like that. You better believe it. You go there now." How dare you have fun on your birthday when you got a countdown of fucking Sublime songs to do the next day. So, but before leaving and after doing the trick to me, as I was sort of coming back into consciousness, Jim Rose sat down and I was like, you've got such great tattoos. I want to get a tattoo every year on my birthday. I think I'm going to, but like, I can never commit. And he said, no, you're not one of them. You don't need a tattoo. You're the tattoo salesman. You're the artist. You're not the audience. And I was like, oh, wow. No one has ever spoken to me like I'm an actual performer before. And it is odd that it would come from him, who sort of, I think he straddled the line between both quite elegantly in a way that I would aspire to.
Yeah.
But
he was great.
Yeah.
I love Jim Rose.
Yeah.
Gosh, but I just have not heard from the guy in so long. Yeah. I remember we saw a certain amount of him at one point. I remember he would show up at K-Rock, and then I don't remember. It seems to me that I remember going to like Webster Hall with you and seeing him there, and then
we did
something I don't remember. Yeah. And he was just like another guy hanging out. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was the Jim Rose Circus.
I'm Googling Jim Rose, and he's not even the most popular Jim Rose. There's a sports anchor named Jim Rose.
Yeah,
and
that happens
other
with
journalists.
a name like Jim.
Yeah.
Huh.
But yeah, during the years that you and I think, really got to know each other when I was interning for you, were really the peak Jim Rose years when he was doing Lollapalooza. And we did see him at Webster Hall at least once.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Webster Hall was great. There were some great times there, man. There were some great clubs around there. That's around where the Mud Club was, too. Like across the street, I think, is where the Mud Club was.
Yeah. Now I think, and this is one more reason why I am going to join you out there in California. But now I think that we're headed toward a financial crisis. Because people cannot afford rent here.
Yeah.
And they keep tearing shit down. But I'm sorry, I went off on a crazy tangent about the name Robot Mutant. And to me...
That's okay, yes. Yes, and then...
It's like the number of things we could do under this umbrella are nearly limitless. So, like, if there's a week where you or I can't appear and it's you and someone else or it's me and someone else, it can still be Robot Mutant. And if, like, the biggest thing we want to talk about one week is, oh, my God, there are California wildfires, so be it. And if it's about the entertainment industry...
We know interesting people, so we can, like, bring some of these interesting people on here.
Yeah.
So we should do that. Why the heck not? I got recording gear. I can even go out and record them and then... bring the tape back and, why not?
What do you use for a mobile field recording these days?
I have a TIAC 5-channel recorder. I don't know why it's 5 channels, but it's a TIAC 5-channel recorder. It's about, maybe a dozen years old, but it records up to 96K, and it's very nice. And I have a couple of lav mics, wireless mics. And I have a shotgun mic.
Nice.
And so I can do production sound. I've just started hiring myself out as a production sound guy, which is a very intimidating thing to do, but also fun. Can be fun. But I'm learning how to... again, I'm like a 25-year-old just starting out on set. This old guy who looks like, he doesn't belong there with a bunch of microphones and things.
The thing is, you really do look like you belong on camera now. I mean, you've really got the look down pat.
And yet I could never get it down pat. That was a Dick Nixon joke.
Gosh.
I utilize humor that's at least 40 years old, and it gets me by.
Nice. Well, I think we can do any number of things under the Robot Mutant umbrella, as it were.
Yes, I like that very much.
I mean, tonight was largely us kicking the tires and testing out our fancy new recording technique that you came up with that I think is brilliant.
Well, yeah, and then you can just put this out there, and the audience will only probably hear about a third of what we actually recorded because we're messing around with this for the first time. But yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Why not?
Even my solo show that I've been doing every night, like every night you hear like a 20-minute show. It started out as 49 minutes. And
I hope this isn't too much of a nightmare to edit for you.
Oh, no, not at all. I actually, once you convinced me to go to Pro Tools, I was so happy that you did, because even when I do like those just crazy edit, like you've seen when I've just chopped the thing up to bits, it's still so easy to, like, sometimes I'll do it just because I'm bored and like I go, no, you know what, that sounds perfect, but what if it's even more perfect with a crossfade? And it almost always is. Yeah. Pro Tools does often reward you for fucking around, although sometimes you'll do like one click too many and it'll get really angry at you and shut down your whole session.
Yes, especially now that it's not quite compatible with Mojave, but they're going to cure that.
Yeah.
They're going to cure that. Yeah. No, I looked at my usage thing on the computer, and the Pro Tools uses tons. Pro Tools uses like 168%.
Oh, it's insane. Yeah.
It's like, how can anything use 168%? I don't get that. But anyway, I guess because there's the dual core processor, so it uses 100% of one and 68% of the other. I don't get it.
I keep a thing up in my taskbar that lets me know how much memory I have and what's using it. And Like,
Yeah, it's called the activity monitor.
well, the activity monitor comes with, but like this one also has a visualization of like app memory is red, wired memory is yellow, cache memory is blue. And like the entire thing is red, and it's like going around in a circle saying like, you've overtaxed us by much more than like you are overclocking the hell out of this computer. And not to brag or to be like, oh, look at what a pimp computer guy I am. But this is an iMac Pro. Something that my understanding is you buy this when you use your computer for professional audio and video applications. And Pro Tools is driving it bananas.
Yeah, well, that's just particularly right now. And they're supposed to cure that when they come out with the new version.
Now, if you don't want to answer this
supported
for any reason, feel free not to.
Okay,
Whether it be because, political or you just don't know, any of that is totally acceptable. Do you think that there is a particular party between, say, Abbott and Apple that bears more or less of the responsibility for this issue?
I couldn't tell you. I think it's just a simple matter of the reality of, they're different companies. So Pro Tools had no idea what would be in Mojave when they put Mojave together, and or at least they didn't have as thorough an idea as they could, and they just takes them some time to catch up with whatever the little tiny threads of reality are that involve this software. So I think it's just a matter of, them not being the same company. It just takes a little while for it to catch up.
Yeah.
I don't really, you can blame somebody, but I don't see it that way, really. I think just stuff takes a while.
Oh,
and you have to accept that.
And I do. And in fact, I believe for our next go-round at this, and I'd love to do it again as soon as you got the time, one thing I can do some research on and we can talk about is this new East Coast, West Coast hip-hop style feud that has erupted between Apple and Spotify.
Oh, I don't know much about that, but let's study that and talk about it.
Yeah, all I know is that nasty, nasty words have been exchanged and press releases and all kinds of stuff.
And now I just saw an advertisement on TV for Tidal, supposedly having some sort of high fidelity thing.
Oh, yeah.
But they're very vague about it. They say, it's master approved or something. But what does that really mean in terms of bit rate? I don't know. The one that I love, the thing that I love, my new thing it's just amazing, is this thing Qbit, or Qbuzz rather, Qobuzz, Qobuz, Qobuz, which not a lot of people know about, but it's high resolution audio streaming.
When you turn me on to it,
works right.
It does.
When it works right, it's freaking great.
I don't like I love a lot of it, but I don't like its library limitations. There's whole swaths of music that I really, really love that it just has none of. And then there's other stuff that I love that it's got such depth to its library. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But I'll pick an artist and go, And then I'll find that not only do they not have the artist, but basically nothing representative of that artist's genre has yet made it onto Qobuzz. But when I first Googled it, when you recommended it to me, I Googled Qobuzz, and all the hits, all the top Google results were Qobuzz or Qobuzz versus Tidal. It was all these comparisons of what makes Tidal great versus what makes this great. Tidal, I know to be problematic or I think of as problematic, having not actually tried it, but, it's owned and controlled by a cabal of the musicians themselves. And you would think that would make it something to be desired. But my understanding is that they do and don't promote or feature certain artists based on, I think the guy from Coldplay is involved, Madonna has a stake in it, and Jay-Z. And these are all talented people. But
that's right. This is the thing. They talked about this 2-3 years ago.
Yeah.
That's what that is, of course.
But they are talking about
virtually forgot.
They are bringing it up like a fresh topic as though it's been given some high def makeover, whereas maybe in the early years it tried to get by on, hey, we're the official service that Madonna and Jay-Z create.
Right.
I remember an interview around that time when they launched. They interviewed Noel Gallagher, who the biggest thing I miss about Oasis, aside from the wonderful shows, the wonderful music, the incredible unpredictableness of them and the way they'd fight, but Noel just being such a dry-witted, not giving a fuck kind of guy. He was asked about Tidal, and I think Oasis had like just broken up and he'd started a solo career. So you'd think he'd really like be on alert to like get into, bed with these people, keep doing business with the music industry. And it's like, yeah, fucking Tidal, right? They come to me, they're like, oh, we got Madonna, we got Jay-Z. I'm like, that's great. Write a fucking song. Then tell me about your service. Your songs are all shit. He's so great. You should, I forget the name. It's like the total career of Oasis, whatever DVD they put out just when they ended it. They, for whatever reason, even though like the wounds were fresh, there had just been a fight between Noel and Liam, after which they would never speak again. And yet, nonetheless, they were like, hey, Noel, why don't you do all the commentary for the videos? He goes, oh, fuck, really? I hated making videos. Are you sure? All right, fine. So if you watch any of these videos where they're like, doing Jesus poses and being all, it was the 90s, man. So everything was so consequential and, they're like in field, it's all this false, like bogus, silly, fake music video gravitas. He's like, oh yeah, this fucking director, he was sure he was doing like Apocalypse Now. I'm like, mate, I just want to fucking get this home, go home and eat some fish and chips, play with my son. Fucking go make a film you want to make a film. It's a music video already. I love that not giving a fuckness of them.
Yeah, me too.
And that endures.
Yeah. You always liked their music more than I did, though. I was never a big Oasis fan.
Well, I, in a way, suffered from what I now call out in people younger than me, which was that the people who inspired Oasis and who in many ways Oasis was often trying to emulate, you were hip to them before the world was hip to them. And by the time they were a thing, you knew them inside and out. Whereas I was getting a lot of this second, third, fourth hand passed down and watered down over the generations. And I can understand why Oasis wouldn't be very inspirational to you in the same way that, like, most music to me is like, oh, are you fucking kidding me? I remember when the Smashing Pumpkins rehashed that Kinks song in 1994.
Right. Remember that time we were nostalgic?
Yeah.
Back in 1978?
Yeah.
We were so nostalgic about 1972 and 1978.
There's this movie out.
Yeah,
it's a comic movie that eventually I'm sure you'll see. And it's good and it's fine. And everyone's got a very strong opinion about it because it stars a woman. But no one talks about the fact that it takes place in the 90s and they just can't stop beating you in the head with, look, it's the 90s. This guy's got a pog. Wow, an internet, what's that? We're watching the 70s
what
show.
What movie is that?
Captain Marvel.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I have to see that. I know. That's on my list.
And it's a good movie. It is flawed, but it's neither great for the reasons everyone's calling it great, nor terrible for the reasons everyone is calling it terrible. It's one of the many Marvel movies that are fine, a little bit annoying in some places. There are whole swaths of the Marvel canon that you sort of have to watch because when you see the next Avengers movie, you won't understand any of it if you haven't watched all these movies. And when I say that, I'm including Iron Man 2 and 3, Thor 1 and 2. Lots of their movies are, you've just got to go spend $20 and 3 hours of your life, or else you won't understand the next Avengers movie. This has that problem, and it also has the 90s problem. It is like that Portlandia episode. It's just so like, wow, look, there's Matt Pinfield. That's Matt Sager doing drops on the radio. It is very 90s.
I think that should be the name of our next podcast, is That 90s Problem.
I like that.
Well, no. I like Robot Mutant. Let's keep it Robot Mutant.
Okay.
And you out there, you listeners, let us know what you think. Write to us. You got the inside there stuff to write, right?
I'm sorry?
I was throwing it to you because you might have like a thing to write to.
Oh, sure. Well, you could write to either Matt or Bill at robotmutant.com. That's ROBOTMUTANT. And, you want to give out your social media stuff and I'll do the same?
Oh, yeah. And you can see my website, which needs updating desperately at the moment, is just soundpup.com, soundpup.com. You can also look me up on SoundCloud, where I have a lot of radio, theater, and stuff, and some music under my name, Bill Cates. It's like Bill Gates, but with a K instead of a G.
All right. And I'm, let's see, you can go to mattsagervoiceover.com. You can get me on Twitter, where I'm at Matt Sager. And then everywhere else, I had a fight with these other Matt Sagers. You know, there's a rock drummer Matt Sager and like a tattoo guy, and they hate me because I own every Matt Sager domain on the web. But then they went out and got like Tumblr handles and shit and Twitter. So like I got the Matt Sager on Twitter, but on Instagram, I'm real Matt Sager because all the other ones are fake. And on Facebook, I'm the Matt Sager.
So you're not fuck you, I'm really Matt Sager?
Not yet.
That's not you?
Not yet.
Okay.
I think I told you, right, that this voiceover guy in, like, Florida changed his name to Matt Sager and started selling his services and putting up shingles everywhere going, I'm Matt Sager, doing the Matt Sager voiceover. And, like, you know, I would love for my career to be that happening, that there would even be a reason for it, but there isn't. And I rang the guy up and said, listen, I don't know what you're going for here, but don't, please. He was like, no, you can't be the only Matt Sager. I'm like, well, yeah, but it's my name. It's not me being, and I know I said I wasn't going to name names, but I'm not pretending to be Freddie Vedder or Burt Cobain. My name's Matt Sager. Your name is Joe Johnson. And I eventually...
Really? His name isn't... that isn't even his name.
Neither Matt nor
Why
Sager.
on earth would he want to use the name?
His name is like Jordan Fredrickson. And
why on earth would he want to use your name?
Well, the only reason I can think of is really self-aggrandizing in a way that, frankly, my career doesn't merit. But it's to steal my business. You know, it's very clear. And rather than go there with him, because that is obviously what he was doing, and I didn't understand why, because, you know, I would love to tell you that this wasn't the case, but I am not so hot and happening that you want to steal my shit. Like, you know, these people who almost mugged me last week barely even bothered to try once they got a look at what was going on. And similarly, if you're going after my career, understand that, like, it is just bizarre. But I finally went to him and said, listen, just so you know, if you ever join the union, I'm registered as Matt Sager with SAG-AFTRA. And I said, just as a sort of comparative anecdote, you know, Nicolas Cage, he didn't want to not be Nicolas Coppola, but he had to become Nicolas Cage because there already was a Nicolas Coppola who died like 20 years before he joined, but that's the way the union works. So this is all just a bad idea for you. And he said, I'm demanding that you cease and desist contacting me about this. And I said, no, you don't get to do that. I'm the guy with the lawyer. I'm Matt Sager. I'll talk about this until you change your shit. But eventually, I actually had to spend like $1,500 getting a copyright on Matt Sager voiceover.
Wow.
Yeah.
And did he stop ever?
He didn't completely stop, but he dialed his efforts back.
That's so bizarre.
It really is weird. You know, I even said to him, I said, you know, there are some people with whom that name has a negative connotation. And, you know, just FYI, you don't need my baggage and I don't need yours. But there was just no reasoning with him, just as there's no understanding what he was thinking when he did this. I mean, it's actually very flattering, but I don't have a career deserving of theft. I wish that I did. And part of me is a little bit, I don't know, like my ego zone has a little bit of a boost. Like, I've got an impersonator. But mostly it just sucks. Because it's like, it is hard enough out here for a brother. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah, I know. A dear friend of mine is a very unique personality. He's not famous or anything. I'm not going to say where he lives or even what his name is, but he was stalked. I think I talked to you about this a little bit. He was stalked fairly seriously for a while, and he had to get like orders of protection now.
Oh, yeah.
Because like, it's like, I guess it's about, you know, people just they don't feel like they're interesting enough, so they have to find somebody interesting and then, you know, try to absorb them or something. Very strange.
I don't want to, like, paint with a broad brush or besmirch those who don't deserve besmirchment, but it is certainly the case that at least fans of this industry can be a quirky bunch. Fans of anything, anyone who's too into sports can be very weird. Anyone who is too much of a fan of anything you can go down a weird, to paraphrase Sam Milkman, a bit of a crazy road if you're not careful.
Aye, laddie. And on that note, may we see you, our listeners, on the other side of that crazy road the next time you tune in for Robot Mutant.
And coming soon, robotmutant.com, which will feature episodes of this podcast and all kinds of cool stuff.
Cool.